Tackle Junkies, what's going on, everyone? Really appreciate you guys and gals for clicking on the video. In today's video, we're going to build probably one of the best spooling stations you can build, that money can buy. We're going to build one of those, and really it's not all that expensive. I went to Ace Hardware for my parts, and really this price is for two of them. I'm putting two of them here on my shelving. The first trip I spent 32 bucks after tax, and then the second trip I spent a couple bucks. So really, before tax, it's probably gonna cost you 15 bucks. Like I said, I got two of them here, so about 34 bucks after tax. So roughly, like I said, 15 bucks or so for a spooling station, and this is probably going to be the best one that you've ever seen in your entire life, all right? I have another one that I built. I'll link it down below. It's nothing fancy, and it was more built for spinning reels, because the spinning reel, you want the spool laying flat, okay? But you can also turn that one on its side to spool a bait caster. And I just use these things here to create some tension. The original one, I think, is called the Shark Tooth. I'm not sure they make these anymore. And then Maxima, I think fishing line, they started making that as well. All right, so you can use these to give your line some tension, to put tension on your line, right? But we're going to do something even better, right? So I think what we're going to do, I'll just move the camera in close here, and we'll go ahead and build it on here. Now, I'm not really going to give you guys really any sizes. I'll show you all the parts that I used. But for me, this shelving here, there's already some holes in the side here. I didn't want to drill new holes, so I used a piece of threaded rod that would fit into this hole here. I might have been able to go 3/8. It would have been a little tight. I went 5/16. 3/8 probably would have, like I said, been a little too tight, and maybe had to drill that out, which I didn't want to do. So like I said, I went 5/16. So everything's really based off of the hole that I already have in the shelves. So you can drill whatever size hole. If you got like a framed out wall and you got a 2x4 right here, you can drill whatever size hole you want to drill, and then just make everything that you pick up, like all your parts, make sure that they, you know, work with the size spool, okay, that you have. I run Seagar, I'm a Seagar guy, so I got two different setups here. One for my bulk spools, and then one for the smaller, like braid spools, or just like the single spools, you know. So I'll show you guys both setups, but let's go ahead and get the camera in here and get this baby built. And again, depending what size spools that you run, again, I run the bulk spools for the most part from Seagar, so I went with a long threaded rod here. I do believe these are like a foot, could have been 18 inches. I do believe that's about a foot. And they have longer pieces, you can cut them. Again, they did have these already cut at a foot, so I went that route. But the first thing you're going to need, and guys, there's multiple ways to do this, all right? Like, you don't even need these little rubber washers here. I got them here just so I can put a little more pressure on my wing nuts, plus I wouldn't scratch up the finish on my shelf. So kind of serves a couple purposes there. Anyways, so first thing you're going to do is run your rod. Make sure we're in the, and we'll go right here so you guys can see. Run the rod through there, okay? This side over here, I'm going to run a rubber washer and then a steel washer. And again, I used a 5/16 threaded piece of steel here, so everything I'm using is 5/16. And then I didn't want to have tools to do this, so I'm just using wing nuts. All right, so thread it on there like so. Now, same thing on the other side. We'll do a little rubber washer here. Rubber washer, your steel washer, okay, and then another wing nut. Now we'll just snug her up. And like I said, having that rubber washer on there, you can really tighten these down. They'll snug up, and I don't believe that'll come undone there. where if I didn't have that, I don't think it would compress as good. Obviously it can't because there's no rubber behind there. So this should stay good and snug. So pretty happy with that. Now, the next thing you'll need is another wing nut. Put it on the opposite way though. Okay. A washer. A spring. Another washer. Now these here are bushings. Okay, I got a little lip on it, and that'll fit inside my spool there. Now again, I'm making this all work with the holes that I had. Okay, if I wanted to, I could have drilled a much bigger hole and just got a bolt the size of this spool and made it easy. So keep that in mind as well. But anyways, I'm going to run the bushings, which is probably a good idea anyways. So there's the bushing there. Okay, your spool, put your spool on. And then really just going to repeat on this side here. So another bushing, washer, spring, another washer, and a wing nut. And that's it, guys. Pretty dang cool, man. That's awesome. And you can customize it for really any spool that you guys have. And when I'm spooling up my fluorocarbon in mono, I want a bit of tension on the line. Basically, all you're doing is like pinching the line with your thumb and your finger. So now you can just tighten up the wing nuts here to create some tension, and you are good to go. Of course, for your braid, I like my braid pretty tight on my spool. I'll make it much tighter. But like I said, having the springs on there, it's now adjustable and pretty dang awesome, man. I truly love that. That's awesome. So now I'll show you guys what I did for my smaller filler spools. And again, I'm gonna have two of them on here. You know, one for braid, one for my fluorocarbon or my mono. I may even run three. I have one for mono, fluorocarbon, and my braid. I don't run a ton of braid. I like braid around grass, but I use a lot of braid for backing on my reels. And I got videos on that, guys. I'll link them down below. But like I said, a little bit different for the smaller filler spools. Take off the wing nut, the washer, the spring, another washer there, your bushing, and the spool. So we have our bushing here, and we use two bushings for the bulk spool, but you'll see here, obviously we can only use the one, okay? And you may also notice that that bushing extends past the spool. Okay, that's an issue, all right? If we don't fill that gap there, if we just put a washer on and tighten it up, it's gonna have some wobble to it, all right? So I bought a couple things to make this work. For one, to kind of fill the gap in the spool, since we're only using one bushing there, I bought these nylon bushings that go over this bushing here to fill the gap, okay? So that's one problem fixed. So we can put the spool on there, and now the spool is nice and center on there. It's centered, all right? So now we need to take care of the gap there from the spool to the edge of the bushing. And the bushing itself is 7/16, okay? So I got a washer that is 7/16 that fits over that bushing, okay? So now all I have to do is slide the washer on there. It'll go over the edge of that bushing, okay? Another washer just with the 5/16 hole to keep it in place, okay? Then a spring, another washer, and a wing nut. Make sure that washer is centered there around that bushing. Just hold some pressure on it. and you are good to go. My braid don't like much tighter, so I'll just push some springs all the way in there, tighten up the wing nuts. Like so, make it good and tight. And that's more than enough tension to spool my braid. Oh yeah, that's perfect. You can see there it's not spinning freely. That's plenty of tension on there to spool up your braid. So pretty dang cool, man. Pretty dang cool. You can see there, loosen her up. Less tension if you want less for whatever reason. And two, with these springs, if you want like a ton of tension, you can get different gauge steel on there so they're stiffer to give you even more tension. Well guys, that should wrap it up. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. And remember, I built this, or I bought these parts based on the hole that I already had. So like I said earlier, if you guys want to, I mean, this hole in the spool here is probably maybe 5/8, maybe 3/4. So you can just get, you know, that bolt size, whatever this is, drill a hole in a piece of steel, a 2x4, whatever, and make it much simpler. Again, I had to add certain parts just because I was dealing with a hole that I already had. So maybe you don't need the bushings and things like that. It could be even cheaper. So play around with it, have some fun with it. Springs here, get some reels spooled up and get on the water. If you guys like the video, be sure to smash the thumbs up. If you guys have any suggestions to make this better, let me know down below. I don't think you will because it's pretty dang awesome, but if you do, let me know down below. You guys are awesome. Love you guys, and we will see you guys on the next one.